Welcome everybody to the Bradenton Blitz. This is Jason Dill and I'm joined by David Wilson, and we're entering week 2 of the playoffs, round 2.
Yep.
Regional semifinals for the 2 surviving teams, Manatee and Braden River. But before we get into previewing those games, let's take a look back at the first week of the playoffs. Obviously, Braden River and Manatee both won. Southeast and Cardinal Mooney lost. St. Stephen's was in their Florida Bowl, which you were at in Oviedo, and they got beat pretty handily by Lakeland Santa Fe Catholic for a second time this year. So let's start with Southeast. The Seminoles had to go down to Fort Myers and play Dunbar. 8 forced fumbles, 5 recoveries, and they lose 16-2, which is a very odd scoreline indeed.
Their offense only allowed 1 touchdown. That Dunbar got a special teams touchdown and a safety. Southeast defense also got a safety, obviously. I think it was kind of what we knew all along with them. They have a really good defense, a good young defense that they should be good for, some time to come, especially that secondary is young. But the offense was just too one-dimensional with Kevin Johnson trying to do everything. They've got the pieces in place of the defense. The question for them next year is just going to be, can they get their offense together?
And they lose Kevin Johnson, who led the area in rushing yards.
Also played quarterback for like 4 games for them.
Right, and he actually played that game hurt. He had a left shoulder injury, so they suffered in the last week of the season against rival Manatee, and he was limited against Manatee and, of course, against Dunbar as well, rushing the football. They just didn't produce so much offense, couldn't capitalize. Head coach John Warren after the game said, missed opportunities. Of course, when you recover 5 fumbles on defense, you should probably win the football game, but that just didn't happen for Southeast. Cardinal Mooney also had to go on the road. They had to go across the state to Fort Pierce to play John Carroll. There were a bunch of lead changes late in that game, and they ended up losing by a few. So they're out of the playoffs as well. St. Stephen's, game that you went to see them play Santa Fe Catholic, another team that just couldn't get their offense going. What happened to the Falcons against Santa Fe Catholic?
It was a real defensive struggle in the first half, particularly. It was 6-0, at the end of, or coming down the stretch. And St. Stephen's tried to get points. They were around midfield. 8 seconds left. They tried to throw a pass to get in the field goal range, at least get 3 points. They had a timeout left. But pick 6 swings the game. They're down 12-0 at halftime. Santa Fe gets the ball at the half, takes a 7-minute drive, gets 6 more points. So all of a sudden it's 18-0 with 17 minutes left, and they were just out of time essentially at that point with the way their offense was playing.
Yeah, but it's still a really good season for St. Stephen's to get that far. You also happen to be at the Braden River Gulf Coast first round playoff game because I was pulled into covering golf tournament action, the 2015 Handa Cup that Team USA retained. I actually couldn't get away from an injury. Daniela Makapane, former LPGA Tour regular, got injured after holing out on the 18th hole to basically be a key point for the U.S. to retain the cup. She jumped up and down and hurt her knee. So whether it's, I get away from a football field, I still see an injury, but you got to see Braden River and Gulf Coast play. The Pirates were not as efficient in the red zone as they have been for the season. So what are they going to have to do moving forward, and how did that game play out for you? It seemed like it could have been a lot closer at halftime, but it wasn't.
They're missing, they clearly miss Raymond Thomas. Dexter Hood has been pressed into duty at running back. He's been pretty good, but he gets big gains, and then it's either, a lot of times for him, it's a gain of 2 or 3 or a big gain. He's not really picking up those chunks of yardage at a time. Raymond Thomas could consistently produce, and it hurts him in the red zone. Their passing game was pretty good, especially in the first half. It kind of kept them alive. Jacob Huseman made a couple good throws to Juwan Jenkins and Travis Williams to give them a pretty big lead at halftime, which could have been smaller. Gulf Coast botched a field goal with a bad hold. Braden River had a long kick return with less than a minute left to set up a last-second field goal. It was kind of a 6-point swing there. But it was still impressive for them. They ended up winning still by 23 points. Defense was good, especially in the second half. And they're going to win with their defense, and they have, as good as their running game was, they have a Division I quarterback. They can still throw the ball when they need to, and it's an identity that they can assume in the postseason with their star running back out.
And now they get Venice. It's a rematch. 2 teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the state in Class 7A. Braden River's ranked 2nd in the state. The Pirates beat the Indians back in October for the district championship, 30-20. They open up the game with Raymond Thomas going 78 yards up the middle on a big hole created by Alex Salguero and company on the offensive line. Kurt Bradley and staff used Michael Walker at offensive line in that game. He's their starting nose tackle. They moved him from there to start playing some offensive line and also use Salguero, who's going to Marshall, to play a little two-way football for the Pirates because they needed some big bodies to handle Jared Hewitt, who is a monster, has a lot of Division I offers on the table, defensive lineman for the Venice Indians. It looks like they're going to have to probably do the same thing this week. They don't have Raymond Thomas to lean on. They have Dexter Hodo back there, as we mentioned already. Jacob Huseman can throw the ball. I feel like this is a very difficult time to play a team that, as good as Venice is, and try to beat them 2 times in a row. I personally made the mistake of picking Venice the first time around and playing at Bradenton River as a hostile environment. Venice is used to the big crowds because the Indians draw a lot of people down at Powell Davis Stadium. I'm going to pick Bradenton River in a close one.
Yeah, I got to take Bradenton River too. Venice gave them their toughest game of the year, and they still won by 10. I mean, they've been Bradenton River, even without Raymond Thomas. Dexter Hodo's run for more than 100 yards in each of the past 2 games.
125 and 142.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing his job. They've got other good running backs. So they haven't used Jalen Austin a lot as a running back. He's pretty much exclusively playing the slot now. He gets a couple of handoffs on those jet sweeps, but they've got options, I think, to make up for not having Raymond Thomas, and they've got enough that they can do offensively.
And I think it could come down to Kyle Toma's foot.
And he's been good. He had one of his better games of the year, probably. Not that he had to make long kicks, but he was consistently making 35-yard field goals.
Against Gulf Coast.
Right.
So now let's move ahead to Manatee. They got a bigger scare from Oak Ridge out of Orlando than we probably expected. Now they have to go to Orlando area to play Dr. Phillips, a team that they are familiar with because they played them last year. Nick Knoll kicked a game-winning field goal with a couple minutes left to go in that game to win 24-21. Dr. Phillips has a pretty good offensive lineman. He's a junior.
Yep, Auburn commit.
Right. So, which is an important position in a game like this, to have to be able to open up the holes for the running backs. Dr. Phillips has lost 3 games this year. They lost to Apopka, which
defending state champion
in Class 8A, beat Manatee by a lot in the state semifinals last year. They lost to West Orange, which is probably the best team in Orlando, ranked 4th in the state in Class 8A, and won the district over Apopka this year. And they also lost to Mainland, which is ranked 2nd in the state in Class 6A and ranked, 4th in Max Preps?
I think so.
In the state. So they've lost to some really good programs. Manatee's also lost to a good team out of Alabama and Hoover. Lincoln is kind of on a down year, which is what they lost to.
It's been a long time since that game at this point.
Exactly. So, and Manatee's playing a lot better football now at the end of the year. What are the keys for you to see for Manatee that they have to do to kind of get through on the road, a pretty tough place probably to go to play with the atmosphere and everything, and they've already been through it, so they have that experience.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Manatee and Bradenton River kind of had similar games this weekend. They pretty good, really good defensive performances. Got some yardage on offense, but a lot of field goals in that game too. Nick Knoll kicked 4 field goals, including a career-long 52-yarder. So they were kind of stalling out in the red zone as well. Obviously, that was a little bit short of the red zone on the 52-yarder, but for the most part, it's kind of the same thing where to win this weekend, they're going to have to be more efficient down there. You can't give up those opportunities where a lot of times they get 8 points on a touchdown. So you're giving up 5 points when you settle for a field goal there.
Oh, easily. Who do you like to win the game? Who do you think is going to win the game?
I'll take Manatee. But, I think Dr. Phillips, kind of like Oak Ridge, maybe surprised them and gave them a little bit of a tough game. I think Dr. Phillips can give them a tough game as well.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take Dr. Phillips. I think the road ends here for Manatee. They've had a pretty good year. It's hard to kind of judge the Hurricanes this season because of how they started.
Right.
They played a lot better football at the end of the year. I feel like their district was pretty weak in comparison to what the Pirates had to go through in Class 7A, District 11. So I feel like with the way Manatee has played at the end of the year, they obviously are playing a lot better football, but they're definitely, in my opinion, down from last season. And last season's game against Dr. Phillips was a very, very close game. And Dr. Phillips has been battle-tested with those 3 losses, and they've beaten the other teams pretty easily. I know that they beat Oak Ridge a lot easier. It was a lot easier game against Oak Ridge for Dr. Phillips than it was for Manatee. On the flip side, Manatee had a lot easier time against Steinbrenner than Dr. Phillips did too. So using the common opponent thing is kind of difficult. I'll take Dr. Phillips, and
I expect both of them to be good games this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So if you agree or disagree, let us know by emailing us here at sports@bradenton.com. And until next week, this is Jason Dill for David Wilson, and we'll catch you on the flip side.